So here we go with another topic of economics known as law of return to scale. It states that if given a certain combination of factor of production producing a given output, all the factor increases in same proportion. If output increases in same proportion, return to scale is constant. And if output increases more than proportion, then it is increase return. And if output decreases oh increases less than proportion, then decreasing return. As in law of return to scale, our production site may change, our techniques may also change. So the following changes are also occur, that are change in labor, capital change, and it also changes the production. So here we go with an example. Let's say I have one capital and one labor that gives me an output of five quantities, output of production, whatever. And if I want to double the capital and the labor, then what happens to my output of production? We have three conditions. Let's say it may increase, it may remain constant, or it may decrease. So discuss it. First, if it is increase in the same proportion of capital and labor, then it is known as constant ratio or return. As we can say that I double my capital and labor and my production also doubles, so it is constant return. In constant return, change in proportion of labor and capital is exactly same as change in proportion of production. And if my production increases more than the increase in the proportion of capital and labor, then it is known as increased return. That we can say in this case, as I double my capital and labor, but my production increases 10 times more than the proportion of capital and labor. And third case, that is my production is increased but not as same ratio as capital and low, that as capital and low, so labor, then it is known as decreasing return. It also we can also face a new case, that is what if we get our production less than our initial production, that is less than 5Q. Well, it is an impossible in the case of law of return to scale, because it is a long run production. As we can see, if as you can see, the sole purpose of setting a production, and if I want to move it from one place to another place, so it must give some profit to us. The profit does not matter that it doubles or constant. It may decrease, but it doesn't mean that we also share loss, means negative return. Negative return is impossible in the case of law of return to scale. Let's say the graph. Let's study the graph of law of return to scale. Law of return to scale. So first graph is return, increasing return. In increasing return, in this case, increase in labor and capital proportion is less than increase in production. As in this example, my labor increases and my capital also increases, but the increase in my production is more than increase in the proportion of labor and capital. It basically more times as compared to labor and capitals. As relevant to labor and capital, as we can see the graph output versus labor, and in this graph from point, I mark the point OBCD as an example, OBCD as a marking point, and we can see that in my first initial OB, the labor and capital increase as well as production increase, but to case B to C, the labor and capital also increase, but not more than production, as we can clearly state by this graph. And reason of increased return are specialization and dimension of labor, individualization of factors. Next case, constant return. In this case, production increase in same proportion of labor and capital. And this, as you can see in this example, I double my labor and capital, so my production also double as same proportion as labor and capital. And in this graph, we can say these are equals, means for work and capital and production all are increases in same proportion. And reason for constant return are absence of advantage and disadvantage inter period. And last case in decreasing return. In this case, production increases but in less proportion compared to labor and capital. As in example, we can see that I double my capital and labor, but my production increases but not in the same proportion of labor and capital. It is less than its proportion of labor and capital. As you can see in this graph of output versus labor, that here my work, labor and capital are so in this case we can see that labor increase and capital increase as well production increase, but in this case labor increase, capital increase more, and production is not increases as much. So the reason of this are problems and complexity of management, exhaustibility of resources. Thank you. That's it.